I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hello, hello. Welcome to Pivot Point Wednesday. This one, oh my goodness. The weird part of this one is going to be, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. But it's going to be wild. It's definitely going to be wild. Definitely. Finishing putting lotion on my hands. All right. So we are going to talk about spiritual intelligence. So we've heard of intelligence, right? That how we test it with an IQ, right? Like that's intellect, And we've heard about emotional intelligence, especially of late, which is essentially four things. So emotional intelligence is understanding your own emotions and controlling them, and understanding other people's emotions and knowing how to interact with them. That's it. That's emotional intelligence. Okay. So spiritual intelligence, though, is attached to so many things that make us human. It's like, it's our morality, it's our belief systems, it's what we hold, valuable in our lives, right? So understanding spiritual intelligence can honestly transform your life. It really can, because it elevates how you interact with other people, how you make decisions, because you really know what you value, right? And overarchingly, it really guides how you interact with the world if you know what your belief system is. You know what I mean? So as Eckhart Tolle said, and if you guys haven't read Eckhart Tolle, Tolle, please do so. As he once said, you find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level. So I'm going to say it again. You find peace not by rearranging the circumstances of your life, but by realizing who you are at the deepest level, right? And I totally believe that. So today we're going to talk about 10 signs that indicate high spiritual intelligence, and you guys can kind of compare it to yourselves and tell me, do you have high spiritual intelligence? Nobody's going to have all 10. There's no perfect being that has ever existed and ever will, and you aren't one of them, and neither am I. But what it can do is tell you where your strengths are, the challenges that you have, the areas maybe you need to address, and you can use your strengths to help you in your challenge areas. It's great. It's great. All right. And again, the Let's Get Weird section is the biggest section tonight when we talk about spirituality, and the tinfoil hat. When we get to that, it might be blowing some people's minds, but it's going to be exciting. Okay. So let's say hi to some people. Adrian is first. Look at that. Adrian Hicks says, let's go. Great to have you here, Adrian. Nina Williams is here with the waves. Hi, Auntie. It's my favorite Auntie. Armando is here. And Armando, thank you for the cash out for the last show. I did not see it until after the fact, so I appreciate that so very much. I am still saving up for the Keys to Enoch book. Did find one a little bit cheaper than last time, so I'm really watching the prices and putting all money aside to be able to get that book. I want to show you guys so bad. Adric is here. He made it. He's a fly like an eagle. It's great to have you here. Cynical Optimist is here. Peace to you as well. All right. Everybody said hello. Hi, Rocky. Thank you for being here. Okay. So we're going to start with the 10 signs that indicate high spiritual intelligence. And then we're going to use that high spiritual intelligence to get weird and then go straight into a tinfoil hat. Okay. So we know about IQ, talked about that. That's a measure of intellect, right? Like reasoning, math, verbal skills, spatial skills, those kind of things go into an IQ. That's intellect, right? EQ gauges emotional intelligence. I told you what that is: self awareness, self regulation, empathy, and social skills. So there's another layer, the spiritual intelligence. That's deep awareness of yourself and your place in the universe. So there's two parts to that. Just like I said, there's four parts to emotional intelligence, there's two parts to spiritual. It's awareness of self, deep awareness of self, and awareness of your place in the universe. Okay. Hi, Catting Up with the Joneses. Thank you for being here. Okay, so let's talk about, we're going to look at these. Okay, so let's talk about what those 10 things are. Okay. So the first one, much like emotional intelligence, is empathy, right? But it's not just regular old basic empathy, which, my gosh, I'm sure you guys know people who have barely any empathy. So when I say not even basic empathy, it's deep empathy, right? So this goes beyond feeling bad, which is sympathy, feeling bad for someone. Empathy is about putting yourself in their shoes or like relating on a personal level. Like I may not have been through what you're going through, but I've had those similar kind of feelings before. Or like I've had something on a minor scale that I can kind of think of what that's like on a bigger scale. So with this deep empathy, it's like truly understanding the emotions, pains, and perspective. Almost like you're not putting yourself in their shoes, you're putting yourself in their head. Like you can literally, not literally, you can figuratively see through their eyes the situation that they're in. Okay. Empathy and spiritual intelligence is like a deep interconnectedness with other humans. Okay. So that's number one. You guys keep track. And those of you in the chat and in the replay gang, keep track. So we're going to count them. So put your hand up if you feel like you have a pretty, again, nobody's perfect, but put your hand in the chat if you feel like you have a pretty developed sense of empathy or that empathy skill. And then every time we do one, we'll kind of keep track. Philosopher Martin Buber suggested that his theory of I-thou relationships when we see others not as objects. Okay, so that's his theory, I-thou. We don't see other people as a means to an end. We don't see them as objects. We don't see them as a barrier. Like we see them in the way that we would experience whatever it is that they're going through. Like we see them as equals with their own stories, their own feelings. So we elevate connection almost to a spiritual level, right? We're doing this through our consciousness. We're not doing this in any physical type way or even through thought. This is connecting our emotions to their emotions, okay? Empathy does not mean not holding people to standards. I think sometimes we confuse empathy with, I understand what you're going through so much that I can't be mad at you anymore, or I can't hold you to a standard. You know what I mean? That is not what deep empathy means. We actually do hold them to standards because we know it contributes to their growth as a person. When we don't hold people accountable, when we don't hold them to expectations and standards, then they're not going to grow, right? Think about the biggest lessons in your life. Did you learn those in moments of chill or boredom? just sitting around watching TV, doing nothing, just hanging out? Or were they during struggle, hardship, having to meet expectations and standards and maybe failing? That's really where our growth happens. So every time we enable somebody through our empathy, we're stealing their lessons in life. So it is through that deep empathy that we hold people accountable, because we feel for them and know that they went through this suffering or they're going through this thing because they're going to grow. Okay. Oh, look at all the hands. Awesome. I love that. Okay. The second one, number 2. All right. Number 2, finding meaning in difficult experiences. Okay. So this is when difficult things happen to us. So the second sign is the ability to find meaning in difficult experiences. Those with high spiritual intelligence don't just endure. Let me say that again. People with high spiritual intelligence don't just endure. Okay. They extract a lesson, they learn something, they get meaning, they find purpose in hardships. Okay. So Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, which if you have not read Man's Search for Meaning, I highly recommend it. I know there's a little bit going on politically, but Viktor Frankl was actually in a concentration camp. And so he talks about finding meaning in suffering, and he talks about his experience. He emphasized how even in the darkest of times, we find meaning and purpose. Like it's a survival mechanism, and it's part of our human experience to find meaning and purpose. Okay. I heard this saying, and I don't know who to attribute it to. So if you guys know, let me know. But the quote is, ever more people today have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. So ever more people today have the means to live, but no meaning to live for. Okay. It's like if you're an automaton, you just do the same thing every single day and you're not finding meaning, or you're not doing something that brings you joy, or you're not learning lessons, or you're not figuring out purpose and meaning in even the most mundane things. You don't have to go on a quest and go monk or anything like that. But in everything that you do, listening to this video. Oh, it might be Alan Watts. It does sound like him, doesn't it? Yeah, Rocky says it might be Alan Watts. Just listening to this video, and it may not be like the actual video or anything that I'm saying. You might be like, wow, I like the color scheme of that slide, and you're an artist. And so you go and do a thing. And because art is your thing, it's finding meaning in the tiniest of things and finding joy in the tiniest of things. I have this jacket on today. It's now my favorite. It's so colorful. I love it. And it's just brought me joy all day. The resilience of finding meaning in suffering is a hallmark of spiritual growth. It allows us to see that pain, while it's uncomfortable, can be a stepping stone to something greater. Okay. Hopefully you guys have that. If you have it in the chat, I can't think of more emojis, but if we just do hands, then I'll know. I'll just get them all confused. So, meaning in difficult experiences, put the fist in the chat. And you too, replay gang. If you can find meaning in suffering, that's a sign of strength and resilience, right? Overcoming the fist. Okay. All right. The next one. Number 3, trusting your intuition. Okay. A strong intuition is a clear indicator of spiritual intelligence. Okay. It is an inner voice. We don't actually hear somebody speaking, right? But it's an inner voice guiding us. Okay. It's a gut feeling. It's the gut feeling, right? That it kind of defies logic, but it feels undeniably right. Like I just know this thing. I just have a gut feeling about it. I just have a gut instinct about it, right? Intuition is different than like actual knowledge or education about something. It's more direct but unspoken understanding. It's just, and we get that by being tuned into our inner selves. And we may not realize how tuned in we are, but we know we have a good gut instinct, right? When you trust it, you're kind of leaning into the unseen and unknown aspects of life. But that is like central to spiritual awareness. Man, you guys are on it. Look at the fists. Yes. Yes. So we make decisions from our head, right? That's where our knowledge, our education, our experience, our street smarts, our intellect, all of that is in your head. We make emotional decisions from our hearts. We make instinctual decisions through our stomach and other body parts. So why wouldn't we make decisions based on our guts? Because it's not just your stomach. It's, when they say gut, it's not belly. It's just inside your core somewhere. You know what I mean? It's in your core. Red Lion says, and hi, Red Lion, thank you for being here. I saw you snuck in with your fist. He said, gut instincts has gotten me a long way. Not listening to it has been a disaster in some cases, right? Like I always tell myself when my gut instinct is talking to me, like, what's it going to hurt? What does it hurt for me to listen to it? If it says go right instead of left, I'm like, okay, just go right. Do what you do. This morning on the way to work, just had this instinct that I needed to take the highway. And I rarely ever take the highway. It's not that far away. But when I took the highway, somebody that I work with had gotten into a wreck on the highway and was on the side of the road. So I was able to stop, see if he needed anything, see if he needed a ride to work. Luckily, he was not injured. He didn't need anything. But when I went to work, I was able to tell people, hey, he was in a wreck on the highway. He's fine. They're waiting for the police. He's going to be late. Everything's good. Was able to just let people know where he is. So it may seem like a tiny thing, but even tiny things are important, right? All right. So if you guys have good gut instinct, I know the perfect one for this one. It's the star. Put a star in the chat. Replay gang, put a star in the comments if you have a good gut instinct. Right? Maybe we don't listen to it all the time. Sometimes our head tries to overrule things. But if you know you got a good one, put a star in. All right, number 4. Keep forgetting. Philosophical curiosity. Now, you guys know if you watch my shows that this is my jam right here. Philosophical curiosity, right? This is a genuine curiosity about life's big questions, right? And what's a big question to me may be, who cares to you? Or a big question to you may be, whatever to me. But it's when you have big questions or you are searching for the truth. Well, what is the truth? What is the greater truth? What is the bigger picture? And then, let's clear away all of the muck and the mess and the propaganda and the indoctrination and the lies and the shadow talk. And let's just get rid of all the BS, inside, outside, all of it, right? Let's find the greater truth, right? That is philosophical curiosity. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What are the greater truths? What are the actual fundamental questions? I mean, sometimes you can get so far down a rabbit hole, you go, what's the actual question? We're not even trying the greater truth. We're trying to find the big question. You know what I mean? Poor Auntie can't find the damn star, but she has one. Didn't you even question it? Hey, Compassionate and Callous is here. I'm glad you're here. Okay. So, people with high spiritual intelligence aren't afraid to ask these questions, right? What's more, people with high spiritual intelligence approach greater truth questions without judgment. Okay. And I've talked about this before when I've talked about discourse, that to have proper discourse, you can't take anything personally and you can't apply anything personally until you get to the greater truth, until you get to the answer, right? Because as you're having discourse, as you're discussing things, whatever you're talking about has to apply to more people than you, right? And so if you keep if you just have glasses on that are mirrors and all you see is your face, we're not going to get to a greater truth because it only applies to you. If you're just like, I only care about me and my family and everybody else can suck it, then we're never getting into a greater truth. Do you see what I'm saying? So we have to approach everything without judgment. Just because I don't do it, or I don't believe that way, or I don't like that thing, or even if I think that thing is gross or terrible, if I want the truth of it, I have to approach it without judgment. Okay. Let's see. Philosophical curiosity. Let's go. Question marks in the chat. Replay gang, you too. Question marks in the chat if you're always asking those big questions. Especially if you're a rabbit holer, you know that's you. You know, if you go down the rabbit hole, you like philosophy, you like woo-woo stuff. You know what? If you listen to Ram Dass, you better put question marks in there. Or Jordan Peterson, him too, because he's clearing away a lot of the BS, right? To get to a greater truth, right? Cynical says, this reminds me of the quote, if it can be destroyed by the truth, then it deserves to be destroyed by the truth. Oh, love that. Love that. Oh, Auntie's got a whole bunch of question marks. She's a person that I have these kind of conversations with. Adrian has the question marks, big, pretty gold one or red ones. And he says, but everyone else can still suck it. He's Adrian, you're kind of throwing some stoicism in here to our spiritual intelligence. Okay. All right. Well, we know what the next one is going to be, what the emoji is going to be. It's already there, right? But this is a sense of inner alignment, right? So when people talk about vision, this is what they're talking about, inner alignment. So it's being vision and value led, right? And this is important. And that's a way to remember it. VV led, vision and value led. So it's acting from your principles, your personal principles, your actions come from that. Not what you've been taught, not what you've been indoctrinated, not what the dogma says. Because when we act from rules outside of ourselves, then that means our behavior is controlled by possible punishments outside of ourselves. So there's no deepness in it, right? Like, I'm only behaving this way because if I get caught, I'll get in trouble. Well, then you don't really care. That means you would do this other thing, if you could get away with it. And there are things we would do if we could get away with it that may be illegal. I would walk into Walmart and just start handing all the homeless people all manner of food and clothing, and I just start carting crap out of there. Super illegal. I can't do that. So, but this is about acting from principles and your deep beliefs, right? You live according to those, to what your personal feelings are, right? So this one's going to be the flame. Okay. So reflecting on our values and remaining true to your values. every time you give in to temptation, every time you bend or flex or move your values out of the way, you're making self-growth and being authentic, you're making it more difficult on yourself. The more aligned that you can be with your personal belief system, your personal value system, then the closer you are to authenticity. Um, Aspiring to make a difference, right? This is how we are looking at our deep beliefs, right? Make the world a better place, even if it's for your kids or, those kind of things. It's a little idealistic, right? It's longing for the thing that has not yet come to fruition. Like it's having a vision of what it could be, what it should be, being upset that it's not that way. It's not supposed to be this way. This is not how humans are, right? Because we are led by our principles and our vision about how the world could be a better place. It's being positively motivated, inspired, being inspirational, right? Now, being inspirational, being driven by a purpose for sustaining yourself and experiencing growth, being inspirational doesn't mean that we're constantly inspiring people to, what is that saying? That live, laugh, love. That's not always inspiring. Sometimes we are inspiring people towards righteous anger, to be a warrior for the truth, to fight for justice. So when I say things like be inspiring, we generally think about, be high vibe, be positive, those kind of things. But we can inspire towards righteousness. And that's important too, right? Hey, Snowman. Rocky says, I'd walk into Walmart and take the cash. Wouldn't give any to the needy, though, because, hey, I'm needy too at times. Well, I mean, you got to have your own personal belief system. That's how that works, right? But if you guys, you have vision, you have this feeling that the world is not right, and you aspire in some way to, even if it's just in your little small corner of it, to make things better, make it better for other people, to live by principles and a code. Put the flame in the chat. Armando's catching up because he was driving. Rock on. Replay gang, you guys do that too. Hey, Snowman, thanks for being here. So that's living with vision and value led. A vision for the future led by my values, vision and value led. Okay. Now we have transcending pain. Okay. Which I'm going to have a video coming up. Let me see what date it is. Turning pain into power. That's going to be on the 16th of October. So we're going to get deeper into this part. So, but this sign of spiritual intelligence is the ability to move on from pain. It's not that you don't feel it. It's not that you don't have it. It's not that you compartmentalize and pretend like it never existed. It's that you feel it, you experience it, you sit in it, you process it, and then you let it go. You don't sit in the pain. You don't wear it as a badge of vulnerability and, protect me, I'm a victim. It's, we all going to have pain, and we're all going to have suffering, some more than others. And so this kind of emotional maturity portion of spiritual intelligence is sitting in it, feeling it, talking about it, or processing it in whatever way that you do, and then let it go. Just let it go. Move on. Don't live in the past. Don't live in the what ifs. Let it go. Sometimes it can take a long time to process that pain, and sometimes you got to put it on a shelf for a little bit and then get it back out. Do a little more work on it. Sometimes it takes time. So don't feel like because it still pops up for you that you're not spiritually intelligent. Um, would if you know that you can transcend it, so you get it out every so often to do a little more work on it, then fantastic. I don't know why the dogs are barking, and I apologize. um, okay, so if you can transcend pain, put a bird in the chat. Replay gang, you too. Put a bird in the chat. It's not about avoiding pain or pretending like you're not in pain, saying you're fine when you're not fine. It's acknowledging it without letting it control you or control your future, right? It's both. Acknowledge it, but don't let it control you. Okay. This ability reflects a powerful growth mindset, showing that you can learn and evolve from life's inevitable wounds. Nothing good ever lasts and nothing bad ever lasts. It's a circle, you know? We refrain from constant complaining. We don't hyper focus on all the bad stuff. We don't perseverate on past wrongs and past problems and this person did this bad thing to me and all of that. It's not having to fix it either, but just being able to feel it and let it go. All right, Auntie says she's working on that one. Okay, we're working on that one. Okay. Number 7, connection to nature. A strong connection to nature and the natural. Now, this can be different for different people, you know. Some people like to sit out in the sunshine. Some people love when it's fall to like walk through leaves, or they love the smell of the fall. I was just saying the other day, summer rain, that first summer rain where the rain hits the hot asphalt and that's lovely. Or like as a child, when it was raining, we would just go play in the rain gutters, when you're too poor to have a pool, you go play in the rain gutters. But, still other people may like to look at the stars. They may think that's really pretty. They check for the moon every night and look to see what it's doing, what it looks like. And they think the moon is pretty. Or they might like plants, or they like animals, or they like going for long drives with the windows down. But there's something about connecting with nature that's part of spiritual intelligence. Cynical's got the bird. Good. Adrian says, I don't like birds. They either aren't real or are internet troll. Oh, I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. Armando's working on it too. Yeah. Cynical optimist, thunderstorms for me. I love thunderstorms. I love having the windows open. It's something about the electricity charged in the air and hearing the rain and smelling the rain. Thunderstorms are great. I agree with you. But I also love looking at the stars. I love looking at the moon. I think the moon is just beautiful. But I also love just being in the sun, especially if you've been cold or cool and you go and you get in the sun and you feel it hit your skin and it's warming your skin and your skin tightens a little bit and you can smell the sun hitting your skin. Like it's amazing. But I also love walking in grass. I love trees. This is one of my one of my biggies, right? So if you have a connection to nature, I'm not going to pick a specific, just put in the chat what it is. Like if it's a thunderstorm, put the lightning bolt. If it's trees, put a tree. If it's animals, put your favorite animal. If it's the moon, put the moon. If it's stars, put the star. If it's plants, put that. Whatever, however you're connected. I wouldn't be able to pick one. I'm going to have 7 emojis there. So replay gang, you too, put that in there, put where you're connected. And you may just have to pick your primary one. I think if I had to really, really, really really I could take it down to 3, I think. I could do sun and moon and then probably rain. I just enjoy the rain, whether it's a thunderstorm or it's a light shower or it just feels so cleansing to me. Hi, Del Forseo. Thank you for being in here. Yeah, Nina says nature's her thing too. Yeah. Adrian's got the moon. Del Forseo, I can't even tell what that is. That emoji is so tiny. Hold on, I gotta look. Maybe it's a storm. I can't tell. Del Forseo, you're gonna have to tell me. Cynical's got the thunderstorm going. Yeah, all of that's great. Okay, that's connection to nature. The holistic view of nature, echoed in indigenous and ancient spiritual traditions, teaches that we are not separate from the earth or the other creatures that live here. Like we are all one big thing. We are all one biosphere. We're all connected to each other, right? And if you have a deep sense of empathy, would you not be connected to other things in nature, right? Um, the what we call this is holism, right? Or being holistic, which is seeing larger patterns and relationships and connections when you're holistic like that. So being connected to nature is part of being holistic. Okay, seeing as oh, waves and stars. Okay. Oh, they're waves. The ocean. I love the ocean. I can't just take it down. I love the ocean. Do any of you other guys like almost feel like the ocean can be medicine? Like if you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with like ADHD, racing thoughts, not being able to turn your mind off, there's something there's something in, around, about the ocean that just boom, you just chill. You just calm and the thoughts kind of just slowly fade. Like I don't know how to meditate that well anywhere else. Love the ocean. Okay, well, now I totally know where my big skill is nature. Okay. So, next oh, I did that one. Interconnectedness. I gotta pay attention to what I'm doing. Okay. Self-reflection, which have another show coming up where I'm gonna get deeper into that. And I think it's the next one. Yeah. So on this coming Sunday is the blame game. And I'm going to talk about self-reflection versus external accusations. Okay. So this is the eighth sign is self-reflection. So if you have this, just a mirror. Do they have mirrors? I think there might be a mirror. Hopefully you guys can find a mirror or just type the word mirror. So the eighth sign is self-reflection. It's the capacity for it, right? Like some people may want to do it, but they don't have the capacity. That's why at times, that's why I think we're calling this intelligence, is because some of this is having the innate capacity to do these things. And if you can do a bunch of these things and you struggle with others, it doesn't mean you lack the capacity. You've already shown that you have the capacity for spiritual intelligence. It's just, we're going to have stronger ones and we're going to have weaker ones. That's all that is. So, this is about looking inward and being brutally honest with yourself. Brutally, right? I was having a conversation last night and I was talking about initially I said, my initial thought when something's going wrong is not, am I the problem? It's more like, was there something wrong with the information that I gave or in the way I said it? And then I was like, wait, that's exactly it's the same thing. Am I the problem? So, um, but I guess in saying that, what I was trying to say was, I don't think I'm a problem, right? That I am inherently the problem, but maybe the way that I said something or the information that I gave we're somehow flawed, something like that. Blaming others or external forces, excuses, things like that prevents growth. You're not being authentic, right? If you don't really self-reflect and figure out your part in things, good and bad. We have just as much of a problem with the good as the bad, right? We struggle to honestly have a discussion with ourselves about our challenges, right? Because either our shadow is yelling so loud that if we have an honest discussion with ourselves, it will break ourselves, or um, something great happens and we can't even give ourselves props in our own head, mostly because of shadow. You guys see why I press shadow work a lot? Because that inner talk keeps you from being authentic. It keeps you from these things, right? Like that's the barrier. So, true spiritual intelligence means taking responsibility for your actions, taking responsibility for your thoughts, and taking responsibility for your emotions. Through self reflection, we find clarity and we evolve. Yeah, Auntie says I overdo self reflection, right? I get that. Like we get stuck inside our head. Well, I did this wrong and I did that wrong, but I did this right and I'm great about this. And then I was thinking bad about that. Well, I'm anxious about this thing. It's like, and Auntie and I have talked about before, like you get like getting over involved in self growth where you are literally over analyzing yourself too much. And you got to get out of your own head. You got to find somebody or something to go care about and take care of for a little bit. Um, and an activity and other things to get out of your own head because you get stuck in there. Cynical says, I was raised near rivers, so bodies of waters have always been important. Rocky says, I self-reflect into depression and sleeping all day, most of the day. I get that. I get that. And some of that is just you've gotten too far in there and you're starting to agree with your shadow. So it's some shadow work because shadow is just being rude about it. You can be brutally honest with yourself and not be rude. Because when you're brutally honest with yourself, there's no judgment, right? Like I know things about myself. I'm not dumb, but I don't try to hide it either. I just have the conversation with myself like these things are good. These things are not so good. These things are junk. Um, but overarchingly, like if you put all those puzzle pieces together, it makes me. And I'm okay with me. I'm good with me. I'm okay. So I can't be mad at it. You know what I mean? Because it all works together. It makes the picture, right? When you put a puzzle together, there's going to be some puzzle pieces that are just like white. There's no picture on it. There's no colors on it. There's no nothing, right? But if that puzzle piece was missing, then the puzzle's screwed. You got to throw it away. Okay. Rocky says, I have a big head, so it's hard to get out. Yeah. You got to go find other people to take care of, animals, things to get involved with, stuff to care about, learn some things, take some classes, watch some videos, that kind of things. Adrian says, my shadow is an overactive loudmouth critic. Yes. I think that's what they all are, right? Because there are some shadows, they're just like anything happens and the shadows over there like, dummy. Wait, I wasn't me. I didn't even do that thing. You know what I mean? And the shadow's like, I know, but most of the time you're a dummy. It wants to get that word in, It's never going to let you not be humble. Okay. So self-reflection is the mirror. If you guys put that in, if you're good at self-reflection. The next one is, and I talked about this one a little bit, being inspiring. Okay. Cynical optimist says we often witness our own reflection through others. Yeah. You're a little bit at a different plane of spiritual growth in talking like that. Once we realize that everyone that we interact with is a mirror of ourselves. Everyone we interact with is a mirror of ourselves. that's a level of personal growth that it can create a lot of cognitive dissonance. We really have to engage critical thinking there and get through that process. So Cynical's talking about a little bit of a different plane of spiritual growth. So yeah, here's a magic mirror at this point. All right. Rocky and Adrian have the mirrors. Yeah. Okay. So the ability to inspire others. I'm going to talk a little bit more deeply about this. So the ability to positively inspire others, and I'm not talking positive about love and light. I mean positive as in action, right? And when we're inspiring negatively, we're stopping an action. When we are inspired positively, we're starting an action. So the ability to positively inspire others is a powerful sign of spiritual intelligence. It means evoking an idea in them, right? Like not just telling people what to do, but bringing up this idea in them. It means you give them an impulse towards an action, right? We're positively inspiring. Like just, people say just listening to you talk, you know, it then I think of this. Oh, and then I thought of that, right? Like now I'm evoking ideas, right? Now all these ideas are kind of coming together and I'm like, "Oh, I need to write that down. I'm going to do a show on that." You know, what's this theory? I want to look that up. I want to build a car. I want to paint the Sistine Chapel. That's what inspiring is. That if it's not being bossy. It's not telling people what to do or how to be or what they are, or it's not dogma. It's just evoking an idea. You got to come to it on your own. It's just an idea. Then they have an impulse towards an action or a new mindset, right? These new ideas made a new paradigm. I'm now seeing things differently, right? Inspiration is not inherently self-serving, right? When we inspire others, it should not be self-serving. If we're doing that, then we're literally just telling people what to do. It's not inspiring. It's clarity of like new possibilities and some urge to act on it. Adrian says, wait, I mostly interact with bugs. Which kind? Cars or critters? Okay. So let's see, inspiring. Let's do light bulbs. Okay. So whether you want to believe it or not, and whether your shadow says you don't inspire anybody, you're a this and that, a bug. It doesn't matter. If you have seen other people get inspired by you, put a light bulb in the chat because you are inspiring. Adrian says critters. Okay. So number 10, we're getting to number 10. How far I am? Oh my gosh, I'm almost an hour in and I really did not want to do a whole lot. Okay, number 10. You knew this about me. Living authentically. Living authentically. You guys know how much I harp on being authentic, right? You have to there's two things that are most imperative. Balance of everything. Your good side and your evil side need to be balanced. You can't be more than good than evil. Because then you're just hiding parts of yourself, right? Balance and authenticity. Those are the two most important things in this life, and they are the hardest to maintain. So living authentically means embracing who you truly are and aligning your actions with your core values. Okay. So this isn't just being value led. It's not about your values and then acting accordingly. It's about who you are and then being accordingly. Okay. You are aligning yourself or your behavior with who you are. There's no difference from the outside of you to the inside of you. Okay. Inauthenticity leads to dysfunction and a fragmented existence, right? It has to. Because if you're this way in this situation, you're this way with this person, you're this way over here, you're this way if this happens, right? Because you're not just authentically you all the time. You are fragmented. And does anybody even know you? Do you know yourself if you are not authentically you across the board? Okay. Now, again, I want to tell you it's always a work in progress. I myself, I get on here, I put, today I have lipstick on and mascara, eyeliner, and eyebrows. Blonde hair, blonde hair. Okay. That's a problem when you have lights. Okay. Now, and I did my hair. If I was just authentically me, I would get out of the shower, dry off. Here I am. Right. So we all have that little bit of ego that's there too. Right. But again, balance. I'm balancing my ego and my shadow. I'm balancing my good side and my evil side. I'm balancing all these things because where it all intersects is where authenticity truly is. I got to give in to my ego a little bit because it's who I am, right? I want to look decent for these lights on. I'm pale. These lights on, I look like Casper the Friendly Ghost over here. So I give in to my ego a little bit, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's balance. Okay. All right. Spiritual integrity comes from authenticity. Spiritual integrity, right? Spiritual integrity demands that you live in harmony with yourself. Okay. If I have spiritual integrity, I'm in harmony with myself. Okay. It's foundational for personal and spiritual growth. It's something we call field independence. So it's that you think independently from whatever's going on, and you act in alignment with yourself regardless of what's going on. That's called field independence. Okay. So whatever field is going on, whether it's a vibrational field, whether it's an environmental field, whatever the field is, whatever the situation is, I am independent of it because I am authentically me. Hopefully that makes sense. Armando says it's surprising when someone tells you, yeah, like, who, me? Nina says she's trying. Cynical says a constant tug of war between apathy and grandiosity. Yeah. And it's fine. It's getting that teeter-totter balanced. Okay. You have to remember everything you say and everything you do tells people who you are, for better or worse. If you don't want people to think that's who you are, tell them who you are. It's like that phrase, tell people how to love you. When you tell others who you are, you're telling yourself. So if you're giving into the shadow and you won't take a compliment, you put yourself down, you're around other people who put you down, or they degrade you, or they argue, or they fuss, or they fight with you, they treat you like crap because your shadow treats you like crap, then that's who you are. In that situation, that's who you are. So if you want to be more authentically you, it has to come outside of you. You have to live in field independence. Okay. Make sure you're not pretending to be somebody that you're not, and you're not living a lie and living in deceit and things like that. Right. We want to be the same inside and out. And eventually we stop caring what people think. We only care what people think and that they are reflections of ourselves, and not in a narcissistic way. This is a different plane of spiritual development. Okay. Spiritual intelligence manifests. And, I gave you 10 ways. There could be other ways, right? Or things that fit within that I didn't go over, right? But the most imperative one is living authentically, right? You got to have balance and you got to live authentically. Okay. These traits not only help you live a more fulfilling, more meaningful, more purpose-led life, but it also fosters community growth, right? And how we commune and participate and connect with other people. So, the more people who can do this themselves, they become authentic and they're living authentically and they have field independence. The more people that do that, well, then the more harmonious of a world that we're going to have because everybody's living in their authenticity. Oh, Rocky says, so wait, what is shadow work again? Rocky, go after this, go into the playlist on my channel, and there's a playlist called shadow work. So there's a level 1 shadow work, which you can go through pretty quickly if you would like to. And then there's a level 2 where we get more philosophical, but you can literally do the shadow work just going through that playlist. And you are more than welcome to do that again. But that shadow is the archetype of the Joker, like Batman's Joker, that lives inside your head. Okay. He's not a villain. He's the anti-hero. Okay. So please feel free to do that. All right. Now we're going to get weird, guys. This is my new favorite slide right here. Now is when we can stop pretending to be normal. Let's get weird. Okay. So I want to talk about some famous folks that we know, like Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus, because they have high spiritual intelligence, right? We would say they have high spiritual intelligence, okay? If they have high spiritual intelligence, doesn't that mean that they're human and they're not deities? Like not a god, but a human who reached a certain level of spiritual intelligence. So this is my premise, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Okay. So each one of these, again, we're talking about Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus. And depending upon your belief systems, you may believe all three were fully human. You may believe none of them, or one of them, or two of them, or whatever. But we're going to talk about, because my premise is they were three human beings who just reached a level of spiritual intelligence. So much so that, some myths were born of their legends. Okay. So, sorry. This this was me and AI creating a modern picture of Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus. I love it. There's a little jokey joke on there. If you guys want to read it, but here is Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus in this picture, right? They were all born human beings, right? That's all part of the story. They were all human beings, okay? Armando's ready for the story. When they were born, at the moment of birth, right, in all the stories, there was zero evidence of divinity. Now, the closest thing you get is like the North Star was around when Jesus was born. That's not necessarily divinity because everybody born at that time of year, every year, the North Star is right there. So that's not necessarily divinity. But it told the wise men to come, I guess. Muhammad was born in Mecca. I cannot say the grand Buddha's name, Siddhartha Gautama. I've tried. I can't. He is the Buddha, grand Buddha, first Buddha, right? They call people Buddhas when they reach spiritual enlightenment in Buddhism. So I'm just going to say Buddha because you guys will know. And he was born in Nepal. Okay. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, right? They were all born out of women as humans. They didn't come out and start performing miracles, regardless of what the paintings show, right? Okay, Rocky likes my picture. I'm thinking about having it framed. Wouldn't that be amazing? People are like, oh, who are those guys? Oh, that's Muhammad, Jesus, and Buddha. What's interesting is if you look close, that picture of Buddha, that's not, nipples and chest hair, that's supposed to be a shirt. I don't know why AI did it like that, but that I liked that picture, so I kept it. Anyway, their early lives, challenges, and developments were all within the realm of human experience. They were children, they did childlike things, they acted like children, they were kids, right? Again, humans, just like the rest of us. We're all humans, right? They grew, they learned, they had trials that they went through, even as young adults, went through some stuff. Hopefully, you all can tell who's who. Jesus is in the middle, by the way. Buddha is the bigger guy with the weird shirt, and Muhammad is the black guy with the black shirt. So we got Mediterranean, we've got Asian, um, and then we have, I'm looking at Jesus's shirt now, and I'm not sure. There's something in the fact that it's white. I don't know. I don't know. Adrian says, Viva Nepal. Brother Noomsi. Hopefully, you guys have seen that movie. If you're Gen X, you have to have seen that movie. Oh my gosh, stop. Okay, the movie will come to me. Mm. Mm. It'll come to me. Don't put it in there, Adrian. I'm going to think of it because I've seen it so many times. I want the knife. Brother Noomsi. Okay, Cynical says, I imagine the shadow as a sword sheathed in light, unsheathed only to temper it, but never to wield it against another. Adrian says, damn it. Okay, yes, don't. It'll come to me. I love that movie. Love. And the little boy, and then he touches the guy, and then he was making the Coca-Cola can dance. Ah, I'll think of it. I'll think of it. Help me think of it. Okay. Anyway, they were humans, they were kids. All right. Now, spiritual intelligence, spiritual enlightenment, right? We tend to say, or we could all agree, these three figures had high spiritual intelligent or spiritual enlightenment. Okay. They all three had a really acute awareness of the human condition, right? They had moral consciousness and they had insight into the nature of reality. All of those things play into spiritual intelligence. Okay, so Buddha, he attained enlightenment through meditation and introspection, discovering the path to liberation from suffering. Okay, that's how he got his enlightenment. Meditation and introspection, right? This isn't I'm a god. This is I'm a guy. Okay. Jesus, he taught love, forgiveness, compassion, right? It's that high level of empathy and emotional intelligence. He offered radical rethinking of the relationship between humanity and the divine, the gods, right? Because up until then, the gods are separate. And Jesus is like, no, you can achieve enlightenment. You can talk to God. It's not just the priests, you know. And then Muhammad received the revelation of the Quran, which he then conveyed to his followers as guidance for ethical and spiritual living, right? Like, so he's trying to be inspiring, right? He's trying to be value led, vision led, right? Um, then we have impact through the teachings, right? These human beings, these guys, right? What distinguishes these guys from ordinary people is not the fact that they're gods. This is my theory. This is my thing. It's not that they're gods, right? It's their profound spiritual insight. It's their profound connection, that deep, deep connection to both inside of themselves and inside of every person that they connected with, right? They saw people. Their ability to take those spiritual insights and then communicate them, right? Like they have these complex universal truths that they're getting through their enlightenment, and they're telling stories and they're trying to help people understand. They were able to teach in a way that really resonated with people, very inspiring, right? And inspiring across time and culture. Okay. That's what led them to be deified. They're so spiritually enlightened, right? It's kind of like, a family member dies and they were so sweet. Like, they're such an angel and they're my guardian angel now. Like, we can deify to a certain extent, but these men were so inspiring that over time, the myth of them turns them into gods, right? Now, here's what I want to say. There is no need for a god to explain themselves. If you're a god, you don't have to explain crap. You see what I'm saying? But they had to teach. They didn't just, hey, here, let me grab the sun. Here's the sun. Let me tell you about the sun. You know what I mean? They didn't turn off the sun and show it. You know what I mean? They had to tell stories and give parables and explain things in certain ways to get people to understand, right? And a god doesn't have to do that, but a man does. The global influence of their teaching it can be understood and it can be amazing without turning them into gods, without invoking divinity, right? Because if we say they're gods, they're divine, they're part God, they're the reincarnation of God, they're the new God. If we say those things, then what we're telling ourselves is that they're not us, right? But if I say it's these three guys, then I can strive to attain. I can be like that, you know. Then, Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha looks like somebody I want to like go bowling with, you know. They look like fun guys. You know what I'm saying? So the divine, you don't have to invoke being a god. Their story's good enough as it stands. Do you know what I'm saying? Hopefully you understand. Okay. So we are moving on to human imperfections. Okay. Now, human imperfections. I'm sorry. I'm going to check my Cash App real quick because it looked like it went off. And it might be nice to be able to get the book. Okay. Anyway, human imperfections and growth. Okay. All right. Cynical says we can become godly, right? Because it's just, instead of saying they are divine, they are a god, they're different. Like that almost makes them alien to us, right? They're a different thing than us. But if we say that they're men who were people who reached this high level of spiritual insight, then we can do that. Godly little g, I guess. You know what I mean? Okay, human imperfection and growth. Looking at their lives, we see that they struggled just like humans, right? Because they are. There are struggles in the human element for them. Buddha abandoned his princely life in search of the truth. He was a prince, and he had to go through some stuff to abandon that, right? Jesus experienced doubt and anguish, such as in the Garden of Gethsemane. Muhammad's early life was marked by personal losses and societal struggles. That's what led him to try to get enlightenment, right? These experiences are emblematic of human growth. We all go through this, right? We have struggles. We're trying to find the truth. We have doubt and anguish. We have losses. Okay. So it's the pursuit of a deeper understanding rather than divine omnipotence. If they were gods, would they go through this? Would they not have omnipotent? Would they not be omniscient? Would they not know? There's a lot of stories in the dogma that try to button up these holes in the plot, but just logically speaking, what's wrong with saying they were humans who reached enlightenment? Okay. So hopefully that wasn't too didn't get you too far, too far gone. But Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus, I tend to view all of them as men. I tend to view them as role models for attaining spiritual enlightenment in different ways. I don't have to be exactly like any one of them. Buddha used to do this. Okay, so he used to go around and pick up discarded things, that might look interesting, these different interesting things. He would but it's stuff people discarded, or a pretty rock or different things like that. He would just go around and pick these things up. And when he would, when he would walk by and there's children out playing, and they would all come up to him, Buddha, Buddha, he would hand out these little trinkets of interesting things he just found that people threw, hand them out to the kids, and the kids loved them. That's where your story of Santa Claus comes from. FYI. There he is. Buddha. Okay. Anyway, when we view them as humans, they are attainable role models, right? They're not gods who are over here, almost like alien beings there's them and there's us, and they're not us and I'm not them. And, I'll never be good enough. They're role models, right? They're men. You talk to them, you can attain, read their stuff like they're dudes. We have the inner potential to be like them. And just like they struggled and weren't perfect in every single one of the spiritual intelligences, you don't have to either. Okay. We're not separate. These are our brothers, not our Lord. Think about how that changes the paradigm of viewing spirituality and religion. These are your brothers. Your brother. Think about your brother. This is your brother. You know what I mean? You give him a hard time, you tease him, you might go out for a beer or a root beer in my case, or, you loan him money, he helps you fix your car. You know what I mean? You joke around, you give each other a hard time, blah, blah, blah. He's your brother, not your Lord. What is a Lord? It's an overseer. It's the Lord of the manor. He's your overseer. So it changes the paradigm of religion and spirituality. Hi, Rowan. Oh, yeah. Hi, Leon. He's his late night show. Thank you for being here. Is it late? Oh, gosh, it is getting late. But thank you for being here, Rowan. You're fine. You can replay Gang It Up. Oh, yeah. Leon's going to do the same thing. He's going to rewind the topic. Yeah, because we're already in the let's get weird. We're actually getting ready to start Tinfoil Hat in just a second. So we're not separate as our brothers, not our Lord. Okay. In that same way, we can start focusing on our effort rather than our success. And actually we're focusing on our failure because, for Christianity, as an example, to be Christian means like Christ. Christian means Christ-ish, like Jewish, Judah-ish, like Christ, right? But then you're told you're imperfect and can't, and he's God and you're a sinner and blah, 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 blah. And so when we try to be like Christ, there's already a part of us that knows that we fail. And what is that? Falling short of the glory of God. So everything we do has failure woven into the tapestry when we think of these highly enlightened men as our Lord instead of as men. And they demonstrated that they were men, right? They had faults, they had flaws, all of them. Okay. When we just go through life with blind faith requires no action, it requires being blind. When we see these are our brothers and they are good guys, and this is my big brothers. They love me. They want me to be successful. They want me to do well. They don't want me to lie and be skeevy and do crap I shouldn't be doing, risk take, and put myself in bad situations. These are my brothers. They want me to do well for myself. They want me to take care of myself. What would my big brothers want me to do? It's a way, way different way to look at religion. Oh, Rocky says the sun's still up. It may not be where I'm at. All right. So if we're talking about our brothers, Cynical says, this reminds me of my Sufism practices. Sufism isn't a religion. It is religion. It also a lot of times reminds me of Hinduism because it's the humans are in the pantheon of the gods. Humans are one of the part of the pantheon of gods. Right? It reminds me of that too. I just tend to, in my own thinking. And so I'm sharing that with you. And if it works for you, great. I tend to think of Muhammad, Buddha, and Jesus as my big brothers. And what would my big brothers want me to do? And then when do I call on my big brothers? When do I ask for help? When do I need advice? When do I want to tell them positive things? It completely changes prayer. It completely changes how you view religion. So if that's interesting for you, great. Oh, Rocky says sun's out. Okay. All right. So in the tinfoil hat, since we're talking about our brothers, maybe we should talk about our parents. For this tinfoil hat, remember, tinfoil hat has to do with governmental conspiracies. We have the definition right there. YouTube, none of this is my idea. I didn't come up with any of this stuff. I'm just reporting things that I researched. I'm explaining what a tinfoil hat is. This is what I'm going to talk about is just an example of a tinfoil hat. Rowan said, I was saying I'm tuning in super late, but I like this idea. These brothers want to do well for you. Yeah. Whereas the blind faith of religion will motivate you to do what's best for the church. 100%. And there's already failure woven into what you do, right? Your big brothers already know that you're going to F it up sometimes. They know you, but they sure like you. They think you're kind of funny and you're pretty cute and they just want the best for you, right? So it changes the relationship you can have with them by viewing them in that way. All right, so let's talk about our parents, right? And when we talk about if we're viewing Jesus, Buddha, and Muhammad as our brothers and, God in whatever name you name him, because in monotheism, they tend to say, oh, it's all the same God with different names, but not all say that because they're like, no, it's not. But, there's Adonai, there's El, Allah, Yahweh, Elohim, there's all kind of names for dad, right? That's his name, right? Cynical says there can be no spirituality according to the Sufi masters without psychology, psychological insight, and sociological balance. That is Idris Shah. Well, I love that, obviously. I didn't even know Sufi, but there you go. Leon says blue pill blind faith. Yeah. Okay. So we kind of, have an idea of who dad is, right? Dependent upon how we were raised and what we learned. You know what I mean? And did we learn this from other people or at a church or whatever? So we get this idea of dad, right? Now, at some point, I will go into the fact that the creator created dad. We'll talk about that another time. But dad is, El, Elohim, Adonai, Yahweh, God, whatever you want to call him. Okay. Doesn't matter. We know dad, right? Who's mom? Anybody know who mom is? Put it in the chat if you know who mom is. This picture is a hint, by the way, of who mom is, right? And if we're going to have family, and family is about such deep connectedness, why would spirituality leave out a member of the family? Why do we have they say things like your brothers and sisters in Christ, and and they will refer to Jesus as your brother at times, you know what I mean? And then they talk about Father God. Where's mom? Right? So we have Earth. Hi, Extended Clips. Thanks for being here, Earth. Our so-called Gaia, right? Because we've got two Gaias, right? That's Earth. Um, Tiamat. You're pretty close, Rocky, right? Because we have other names for Tiamat, Ishtar is another name. Extended Clips is the Garden of Life. Mama's Gaia, Earth. Adrian says Earth. Yeah. Those are all fantastic guesses. And we tend to look at Mother Earth, Father, Son. You know what I mean? So when we're talking about symbolic representations of them, we have Mother Earth, Father, Son. If we're talking about the Trinity of the family, we have, isn't that? We have Father Yahweh. Let's use that one. Allah, whomever. We have Father. I'm going to say Allah. It's easier because every time I say Yahweh, I spell it in my head. Anyway, so we have Father Allah. We have Son, which is man, right? Humans, right? So we have Father, Mother, who since her demise was known by many names. Yes, the earth is a representation of femininity and of fertility, right? But we're talking about like the actual divine creature. Okay. Ma'at. Good guess, cynical. That was a rename. So was Ishtar. So was Hathor. All of those were like renames of different sides of this original mother. An original mother was pre-Egyptian. Okay. In fact, some people refer to Ishtar, Hathor, and Ma'at as this goddess's daughters. The moon is also tends to be feminine. Yeah. So Adonai or Elohim or Enlil, that's another name. His wife's name was Asherah. Oh, Inanna. Yeah, that's another name. Inanna of the Seven Bells. Yes. Yep. Inanna actually, she was the original story of, it's when she goes to hell to get her, she goes to hell to get her husband. And then that story was like recreated, I think, in the Bible. The pan female god in Africa. Asherah absolutely came from Africa. Original. She's the original goddess, Asherah, right? This is where we get dancing around a maypole. That is Asherah worship. Okay. Asherah, also known as Ashara. This is where the name Sarah comes from. She is ancient goddess. She's the original female goddess, right? She was Enlil's wife. She was El's wife. She was Allah's wife. And in the original Bibles, that came out, pre-Geneva Bible, Asherah was in the Bible. This is God's. She was widely worshipped in the Near East, particularly by the Canaanites. So obviously, she is in the Old Testament. She was later worshipped by the early Israelites. Again, obviously, in the writings, she was considered the mother. So the mother of all things, the mother, right? Now, she did not birth her husband. Her husband created her. Okay. So this is where we get that weird Adam and the rib thing. Like that is an amalgamation of some weird changing of ancient Sumerian writings. So she was the mother. She brought fertility, motherhood, and nurturing to humans. Okay. Again, she was the wife of God. She was the consort of El, wife. And at times, it was also written about that she was the wife of Yahweh. That's why I say when people say it's all the same God, it may be the same God. I don't know. And this was before monotheism became firmly established. So these are the Israelites, the original Israelites, right? But then, the OG Christians, right? We're talking about Yahweh here. This was before man decided monotheism was the best way to go. Sociologically, politically, for humanity. They could be right, they could be wrong. I don't know. I wasn't there. But they established monotheism, okay, where there could only be one God. And so then, since men were setting the rules, they decided man was the one God. So we got God, right? So we stopped calling him Adonai, Yahweh, El, Elohim, Allah. We stopped calling God by a name and said God, because monotheism. So God, just God, not the God, not a God, not the best God, not the head God, but just God, right? So we had to kill Asherah. So Adrian says going to hell to get her husband. That was the story of Persephone, the goddess of agriculture in Greece. Yeah, Persephone was based on Inanna, because Inanna, that story was told in ancient Kemet. So Persephone was based on Inanna. Yeah, because Persephone had to go down, and then she had to make a deal with Hades, right? And so then she has to spend a certain amount of time in hell because Hades loves Persephone. That's the one, I think. Ron says that's why when they're as transitioning to monotheism, they were told to tear down their Asherah poles. Thank you. He's quoting the Bible already. Yes. Okay. So Asherah, she was referred to as the mother of all living, or the queen of heaven, right? She's representing the nurturing and life-giving forces of nature. Like she brought that to humanity, to the physical plane, right? Like that's what we're talking about, fertility, motherhood, and nurturing. She brought that to humanity. She embodies the idea of interconnectedness with nature and the universe, because her thing is fertility and motherhood and things like that. Asherah is interwoven in nature, which is why we see Earth as the feminine spirit, which Gaia is like the feminine spirit. Now, if you're Gnostic, you believe that the Earth is the demiurge Sophia. But again, that's still feminine, okay? But this is where this comes from, right? So her role as a mother figure symbolizes nurturing of physical life and spiritual growth, right? So when she talks about, bearing fruit, fertility, it's also in ideas and spirituality and those kind of things. These were her things in all ways. These three things were her things: fertility, motherhood, and nurturing, right? So she was the first to talk about balance, creation, and sustenance being the most important things that she focused on. Like her husband brought creation, stability, you know, rules, boundaries, very just, the stable things. You know what I mean? Think yin yang, yin yang. Okay. She's bringing the more spiritual, the more ethereal, the more mothering and nurturing side of the two of them together, right? So in many ancient cultures, deities of fertility were not just a physical reproduction, but also about the abundance of life, creativity, and spiritual growth. So Asherah's association with fertility is a metaphor for spiritual fertility, where spiritual intelligence blooms through wisdom, insight, enlightenment, those kind of things. So just like a person may pray and speak to God, whatever his name is, and ask for, can I have wisdom about this, enlightenment about that? Can I know this? Can you help me do my budget? Can you just keep my feet to the fire here on my budget? That's appropriate things to ask Allah about, then we may also pray to Asherah and say, help me have compassion, help me have patience, help me, those kind of things, right? Asherah embodies, she is the original divine feminine. So we hear about divine femininity, right? Which represents intuition, wisdom, nurturing, all of that is part of spiritual intelligence, right? And a lot of spiritual traditions, the divine feminine is the pathway to enlightenment. Okay. So sort of like how the divine masculine keeps you grounded, keeps you focused and stable. The divine feminine, channels you to these more spiritual things. And think about, if you're the type of person that rabbit holes, you need both, right? Because you can get so ethereal and start, all these things can be going off, and you can just be connecting to different things, and you're just all over the place like a flag whipping in the wind, whipping in the wind, whipping in the wind. And you need something to come in and kind of ground you again and hold your feet to the ground. So we all need those sides. Rowan says, taking the female principle away was key to the church inserting itself in that role. The church colloquially being called mother. Yes. And Cynical says the anima and the animus. Yes. Yes. And yes, more than other people understand, that this is El and Asherah, or Allah and Asherah, or Yahweh and Asherah, whatever you want to call his name, right? Or her name. You can call her Ma'at, Hathor, Inanna, Sophia. You can call her whatever you want to call her, right? But it's here, right? Okay. Where are we at? Divine feminine, right? So spiritual twist, pathway to enlightenment. Talked about that. The early Israelite religion and the spiritual evolution. So this is where we talk about where they killed her. So in the early Israelite religion, there are indications that Asherah was venerated alongside Yahweh. So most of the temples to Yahweh also venerated Asherah, right, as his wife. Okay. Now, there were more temples to Yahweh that were Yahweh, but there were a lot of temples that were also just Asherah. Okay. Because, there's little temples here and there. They didn't do mega churches. Okay. So scholars believe that her presence in the early Israelite worship reflects a more complex, pluralistic view of divinity that was gradually suppressed as monotheism developed, right? The idea that spirituality evolved from a more inclusive understanding of the divine to strict monotheism, the God who is wrathful and jealous, reflects kind of the human history that we've gone through, right? So Asherah can be seen as representing an earlier stage in our evolution, right? And then we went through this very monotheistic, patriarchal, colonizing, the period that we've gone in, right? Um, Spiritual enlightenment and spiritual intelligence through balance would have to be balancing the anima and the animus, so the male and the female, the earth and the sky, the sun and the moon, you know. But Asherah's symbol was a tree. Okay. So, symbology is huge, and especially in ancient religions. So it was the tree. And then, because you can't carry around a tree, if you really like Asherah, it was just a pole. And so there would be a pole, and it would have, things twisted around it. And this is where we get maypoles, where they put the pole in, and then you do the little day. And that's all to Asherah. That was during her feast, right? That was talking about Asherah. But then, people would see Asherah in the beauty of the trees. Okay. So connection to spiritual intelligent and enlightenment. You can tell it's getting late. My mouth doesn't want a word anymore. I told you guys this is going to be a long one. We're getting close though. Symbol of balance. So spiritual intelligence involves balancing opposing forces, logic and intuition, action and contemplation, masculine, feminine. So Asherah as the feminine deity and the wife to the male god, that's the balance of forces. So that's a more holistic approach to spirituality. And we talked about holism being natural, we have to incorporate both nurturing and assertive energies, right? Don't we? And in this day and age, when there's like this, we don't like anything male and we don't like anything female, then it's like, I can be nurturing without being feminine. Well, nurturing is feminine and good. I'm glad you can be nurturing, because we're all supposed to be balanced, just like I can be assertive. But that doesn't. Adrian. I'm gonna do the best I can with these words until we get done. All right. Pathway to inner wisdom. Asherah's association with fertility and creation, I'm already not doing great, can be interpreted on a symbolic level as fostering inner wisdom and spiritual growth, right? She was the life giver, right? Not the creator, the life giver, right? In a spiritual context, she could represent the internal process of cultivating things, wisdom, insight, spiritual intelligence, through reflection, meditation, inner nourishment, self-growth, learning things, whatever you do, right? Because she's all about germinating something to fruition, right? Like planting a seed and bearing fruit. Oh, I heard a fun saying. No, it's not fun. I heard a neat saying the other day, and it was that the seed never sees the flower. Something to think about. All right. The archetype of intuition. Okay. So the feminine is linked to intuition and inner knowing that transcends rational thought. Ability to connect with the unseen forces of nature, and then integration of ancient wisdom. Okay. So her existence in the context of like those more polytheistic or the original Trinity version really speaks to the human quest to understand the divine in multiple forms, right? Until we decided to kill her off. So having Asherah as part of the Holy Family, right? Instead of thinking of the Holy Family as Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, I guess, it's the Holy Family being the divine, the origin. We have the creator, we have the life giver, and then there's us. We are the Jesus, right? There's man, human, right? There's Father, Mother, human. That's the original Trinity. And we're a part of that family, right? Me, you, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, we're all chilling at the house with our parents, El and Asherah. that view of spirituality is much more interconnected and holistic. Okay. Um, all right. So here, this is one of the ways like she's portrayed. Do you guys recognize that symbology? It's used today, by the way. By the way, it's called the caduceus because we had to stop calling it an Asherah pole. It's called the caduceus, but it was originally an Asherah pole. Okay, so she was worshipped with if it was a to-go order, it would be a rod. If it was outside nature, worshiping going on, it was a tree. Um, and they would call those the Asherah worship. They would go around the tree of knowledge and the tree of wisdom to worship her. Y'all let me know when you start catching on. So when they did Asherah worship, when they wanted to commune with Asherah, they went out and went to the tree of wisdom, the tree of knowledge, the tree of truth, all of those things. And all of those different kinds of trees to talk to Asherah or sing her songs or put ribbons around the trees, right? Okay. Yeah, y'all were getting that was medicine, okay? Nurturing. I think that's why they used it, because it's nurturing. Now, we don't think of snakes that way because why? I'm getting ready to tell you. So, Asherah, the tree, also called the tree of knowledge, because she represented kind of this deeper spiritual understanding or this deep level of consciousness, right? So, in the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge, also known as Asherah, was forbidden by God. Okay. But it's also associated with Eve, the tree of knowledge, right? Who eats from the tree and becomes aware of good and evil, or that she's naked. Okay. Given that Asherah is the mother and a symbol of fertility, wisdom, life, the story of tree eating from the tree can be a reflection, or, it could be that it's the older tradition where the female figures were connected with wisdom through rituals that had to do with eating from the fruit of knowledge, where you would get spiritual enlightenment. Okay. So I don't mean to be too vague, but there was a ritual where they would go to commune with Asherah, the ladies. This time it would be just the ladies who are coming of age. They would go to the tree of knowledge and they would eat fruit and they would sing songs and they would have rituals. And, the area always had snakes, right? And snakes are always in trees. So there's always snakes. And there was always a lot of snakes around the tree of knowledge. So there's snakes. And the women taught the ladies who were coming of age about their bodies and about what to do when you get married. Wink, wink, nod, nod. And so they would eat from the tree of knowledge. So that was a ritual that happened. So when you look at the biblical story of God saying, you can't go do that ritual, and then she goes and does it anyway and gets that information. And so now she knows about what naked is. And so then she's like, Adam, guess what? Guess what I heard? Oh my God. But then it's portrayed as the fall of man. But these were rituals that were already happening, right? So the conflict between early Yahweh worship and Asherah. Okay, so this happened. Asherah being worshipped alongside Yahweh, right? Either in the temple with Yahweh, or we had some Yahweh temples and then we had some Asherah temples, but it's all happening at the same time. And before monotheism, They rejected Asherah and suppressed her worship before, not before, but so that as they move towards monotheism, the the woman or the mother figure would have no place. And in doing that, then women wouldn't have this sort of mother role model, this all divine mother role model for which to aspire when men would have that in God or El or Allah or Yahweh, right? So um the the way we sort of get what happened is the Garden of Eden, where they talk about the tree of knowledge, which was all about Asherah worship. Okay. So I'm going to, yep, I'm going to skip a little bit. So the biblical story can kind of be seen as like not not a tale about disobedience and getting Adam in trouble too, but like more representative to humanity's awakening to higher knowledge. Like, we get the knowledge. What dad likes it? Their daughter is getting close enough to start, quote unquote, get married or know a man. And, so here we have dad is like, you are not to go to that party with your mom, right? And then Eve, screw you, dad, and goes to the party and gets the information. And then she comes back and she's telling Adam about it. And it pisses off dad because she came back and told her boyfriend and said, you have a pee-pee and I have a vagina. And so then dad's pissed. Like it's a much different story. It's not the fall of humanity in that way. Okay. So, but it pissed off dad. So we're getting rid of Asherah now. So dad kills Asherah or divorces her in some way, whatever, just calls her a tree. They get rid of, okay. I knew I had this. Okay. So during the 7th century BC, so I'm not just like making jokes about that they removed Asherah. Here's the deets. Here's how you know. King Josiah in the 7th century BC, he eliminated any deification in any written text, right? So if you had Asherah, it became tree or pole, right? The word Asherah was taken out of all writings. It became tree or pole. And anywhere that it said Adonai, El, or Yahweh were changed to the word God. Okay. In all of the writings, all of the scrolls, everything had to be changed. And this is King Josiah in the 7th century BC. So King Josiah also made a decree that all of the Asherah poles that were around, like all these fun maypoles that are around covered in flowers and whatnot, were destroyed. King Josiah said, out, right? He had most of her stories and symbols removed from anywhere close to Yahweh. So anywhere that Yahweh was worshipped, all of her stuff was like gonzo. So we're destroying the poles. We're taking her out of all the written texts. We're kicking her out of Yahweh's house. So, they're getting divorced. And the last thing he did was have all of Asherah's temples destroyed. Okay. Then we move towards, as the scrolls were becoming more in the hands of priests and we had something called a Bible, then the Bible continuously got edited towards patriarchy worship, not just like God is a dude worship, but the worship of patriarchy, right? And so then the Trinity becomes the Father, the Son, who is still kind of man, but it's Jesus, not just us. And we call Holy Spirit, right, is the thing that leads us to enlightenment, that gives us spiritual intelligence, that helps us with our gut instinct, all those things that were embodied and were Asherah, it was changed to Holy Spirit. So we had Father, Son, Holy Spirit instead of Father, Son, and man, that which was the original Trinity. Okay. Let me back up. There were some compliments. Hi, Tara. Thanks for being in here. Adrian says, wait, then that makes her the mother of nakedness. Woohoo. Yes, she knew what nakedness was. Rocky said, I knew it. I always thought they were teenagers. Now she knows pregnancy and he has to work. Right. I mean, that's kind of, when you look at it in that way, it's just like dad's mad. You know what I mean? Adam is Eve's boyfriend. Right. Rocky says, were the snakes sex toys? It was different. Like, in that time, snakes were seen as channels to wisdom. Like snakes are very wise, kind of like how we see owls now as wise. Um, that was how people saw snakes, that snakes carried wisdom, right? And a lot of that it was because there was always snakes in the trees. And then the bigger the tree, the more it was like, hey, Asherah, look at this big, gorgeous, beautiful tree. But then there's these snakes sitting around in the trees, sunning themselves in the trees. Snakes love trees, by the way. And that was also where we get, as you move into pagan religions, you start looking at different pagan religions. That was why before Catholicism took hold, the Catholics or Christians, that they were the same thing at that time, referred to people of pagan religion as snakes, or they followed the snake religion, snake believers. They didn't use the word pagan. They called them snakes because there was usually always a snake around because snakes were symbols of wisdom. Okay. Rocky says, like a euphemism. Yeah. And nothing you see is, you know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes they tweak some stuff because they're like Asherah pole and seeing naked and you know what I mean? And I think it was more like Asherah gave Eve the talk. Okay. Leon says the Lilith story is so much better. It totally is. It totally is. Adam's first girlfriend, which he pissed her off. And then she got wackadoodles and took off. Right. So, which I would say that's Eve's older sister, Adam's first girlfriend, and then Adam got with Eve. Now, you can see again why dad's pissed. Like, bro. Okay. So we turned Asherah into Holy Spirit. Okay. And we turned man as part of the Trinity, as part of the deified family into over here, and Jesus is a God. Okay. So something to think about when we're talking about spiritual intelligence, because we also want to talk about where does some of that come from? Where do these beliefs come from? Who are other, role models for spiritual intelligence? Those kind of things. I am hitting 2 hours, and I told you guys this was going to be long. I had no idea it was going to be this long. I appreciate you guys so very much for hanging in there. Coming up this Sunday is the blame game, where, oh, I forgot to do this part. Hold on. I always have a slide where I say, I'm just going to leave this right here and you can screenshot it and read it of your own accord. I'm not going to say it out loud because I want to keep my YouTube channel. Anyway, this coming Sunday is the blame game, where we're going to talk about self-reflection versus external accusation. So we're going to go deeper into that portion of what we talked about tonight, that is part of emotional intelligence. It's part of intellect. Self-reflection is part of intellect as well. And it's part of spiritual and emotional intelligence. Like, that's an important thing when we're talking about being authentic and being balanced, right? Next Wednesday is when we're going to talk about finding meaning in suffering. getting some strength through your pain, finding some purpose in pain, and how to do that. So that one's going to be pretty important. Anyway, let me take this down here. Put my face back up here. Hopefully you guys got the screenshot that you needed, especially when we're talking about how the Bible has morphed time and time again to worship patriarchy. Okay. Hopefully you guys got that. Boop, boop. And we're gone. Okay. Some things, I'm going to take that down. Some things coming up we're going to talk about in October are men's dating preferences. We're going to talk about empathy and sympathy, toxic beliefs, how to get out of the pattern. Like if you're in the pattern of things, like it keeps cycling around, you keep doing the same thing, right? We don't want that. We're going to talk about the trendy part of spiritual awakenings and, how people are weaponizing statements, what's trendy, and is there any part of a spiritual awakening that's actually legitimate? Okay, we're going to talk about all of that stuff. I appreciate you guys. The live tribe was here and they stuck with it for 2 hours. You all are amazing. To the replay gang, thank you so much for watching. Remember to put things in the comments about where your skills and your strengths are, and have some conversation. I would love to see those. And if I don't see you guys this coming Sunday, I will see you next Wednesday. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not so teric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together.